Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm afraid I'll be dead. Ooh.
100% agree, absolutely spot on. Amberlynn Reid is indeed in the last decade of her life. Now, when she predicted the end of her existence, she didn't seem to be bothered. However, Becky did. And that's the story of Amberlynn Reid. People seem to be more bothered about her health, fitness and demise than she does. The reason why so many people are interested in people like Amberlynn Reid is because she gives us hope. She's not an out-and-out liar. We find ourselves wading through haystacks and haystacks of lies to get that one shiny needle of truth. And when we find that needle, we think we're going to impress Amberlynn by saying, look, here's a truth, you can do it. But if you think you can change Amberlynn, well, take a ticket, take a seat and wait your turn. There have been thousands in front of you and there are a couple hundred behind you. As a health professional, I've reached out to Amberlynn several times in the past and I'm not going to waste her time, my time or your time. What I'm here to do on this video is to tell you and show you how she shortened her life expectancy. If all goes well with life, humans can expect to live from 80 to 100 plus years. So, how has Amberlynn managed to have a life expectancy less than half that number? Amberlynn clearly has an eating disorder, and that eating disorder is food addiction, not binge eating disorder. Now, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So what is binging? Binging is very simple, just eating an excess amount of food. Nowadays, it's most commonly seen in animals where they eat a lot in the summer and autumn months to put down fuel reserves for winter when food is scarce. This doesn't mean that humans have stopped binge eating altogether, because we haven't. Binge eating in humans is now usually done out of celebration as opposed to necessity. The holiday season, vacations, meeting up with old friends, reunions are a few occasions where we do this. It's not the healthiest way to live, but for most people it's controllable and in moderation it will have very little effect on the body and the lifespan of a person. And if people want to keep their weight within a normal range, you'll find that they will restrict calories before and after periods of binge eating and increase exercise before and after periods of this binge eating. And that's why a lot of people go on diets within the new year. As I said, this type of eating pattern is not the healthiest, and it actually can turn into a binge eating disorder. But just because you eat like this or binge eat doesn't mean you have a binge eating disorder. It becomes a binge eating disorder when the binge eating is unpredictable. The binge eating is also acute and it's more like an episode of binge eating. So you're not eating 20 donuts because it's Christmas and you're at your family's. You're eating 20 donuts because something has set you off, a stimulus or a trigger. And some people with binge eating disorder don't even binge on tasty food. Some people have been known to eat raw food, frozen food, rotten food, inedible food. That's how bad binges can get. Within the industry of health, fitness, exercise and dance, binge eating disorder is actually surprisingly common, and I also have binge eating disorder. I have been underweight, I've had very low body fat, I've been within normal weight range, and I've been overweight. So what you see here is just a visual aid of my own eating. Everybody with binge eating disorder will have a slightly different chart. We are the hardest eating disorder to spot because, as you see from my chart, most of the time my weight range is normal because I'm eating normally. People only identify either eating disorder if I lose a lot of weight or I put weight on. So what puts Amberlynn in the food addiction category and not a binge eating disorder? She clearly does binge eat. Remember what I said, just because you binge eat doesn't mean you have a binge eating disorder. If we look at Amberlynn's chart, based on the years that she's been uploading to social media, there are very few periods of time where she eats normally or undereats. Amberlynn, on the average, to be the weight she is, eats 9 meals a day, which means she eats 3 days rations of meals in one day. And as you have noticed over the years, and much to people's frustration, she will do anything and everything she can to get those 9 meals into her body every single day. And don't get it twisted, Amberlynn Reid is not addicted to all types of food. It's the high calorie, high carbohydrate, high fat, easy to digest food. That is her addiction. It doesn't matter what anybody says, those types of foods are going to go into her body on average 9 times a day. Sometimes more times, sometimes less times, but those calories, those foods are going into her body. Unlike binge eating disorder, that is not really predictable. Food addiction is very predictable. You can predict today that person will overeat. Tomorrow that person will overeat. 2 weeks' time they will overeat. 4 weeks' time they will overeat. 6 months' time they will overeat. It is very, very predictable. Once she opens her eyes, Amberlynn's objective is to eat as much junk food as possible. That is her only goal. If you accept that, you will see that her behavior makes total sense.
When binging starts again, all of the hard work I did over here with my calorie counting and my walking and my drinking and my determination and my willpower, all of it just diminishes.
As Amberlynn has never been within normal weight or underweight, none of what she just said is true. And this is the reason why.
They tried to make me lose weight when I was like 9, 10, when I was in an all-girls group home, but I didn't understand it. They tried to give me like low-fat milk.
She's never been on track with a diet. Since the age of 9, she has been a food addict. This lady has never been underweight. She has never been within normal weight range. She hasn't even been slightly overweight. She's always been super morbidly obese due to her food addiction. Does Amberlynn know she has a food addiction? Absolutely yes. Remember what I said about that one shiny needle in the haystacks of lies?
What sucks is the fact that I'm also addicted to food.
Food addiction is her primary condition, and that is what is shortening her lifespan as we speak. It amazes me every time I watch Amberlynn Reid videos how much she relegates her food addiction to the point it doesn't really exist. Instead, she'll focus on treatment plans and interventions for people with binge eating disorders that do not apply to her. And that is why these wise words are spoken.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm afraid I'll be dead. Ooh.
If she applies the treatment plan designed for somebody like me to herself, and as I've told you, I have been severely underweight, and she applies that treatment plan to herself, she will unalive herself by eating herself to non-existence. The treatment plan for food addiction alongside psychotherapy is food restriction. To be her size, Amberlynn is eating 63 meals a week. In order to combat her weight, she would have to drop this to 21 meals per week. So she will say and do absolutely anything as an addict to get those high fat, high carbohydrate, high calorie meals into her body. So what advice do experts give to people who are super morbidly obese with chronic food addiction?
So we're going to start with the 1,200 calorie a day, high protein, low carb diet. So I'll give you a packet that breaks the whole diet down where you eat only 3 times a day, no snacking.
Sometimes Dr. Now can be a little bit tactless, but I couldn't put it better myself. Amberlynn will do anything to prolong her food addiction, which means sabotaging things that will help her with the food addiction. When people have addictions, they will have a loss of power and a loss of control. So the only real power they have is fooling other people, letting other people down. And you find this happens quite a lot in the life of Amberlynn Reid.
She was going to go to Overeaters Anonymous. Amber had told us recently her binge eating was getting out of control.
Just because you say it doesn't make it true. We're replacing binge eating with food addiction.
And she was determined to get it sorted. And the first step in doing that was going to this Overeaters Anonymous. Going to Overeaters Anonymous was a positive sign. It was a sign she was not content anymore with her binge eating.
I had to stop it there again. So Amberlynn, truthfully, was overeating. But what made her overeat was not binge eating disorder. So the 2 meals that she had before bed didn't make her an overeater. It was the 7 meals that she had during the day that made her an overeater and made her a food addict.
I was ready to try and fix the problem. Despite Amber mentioning a couple of times now that she was going to go to this Overeaters Anonymous, it began to sound like she was almost talking herself out of going.
I'm insanely nervous. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go today. I will definitely keep you guys posted. A few things that are worrying me.
Amberlynn's true goal is to eat as much junk food as possible. Say it with me.
It's in a church. I'm agnostic.
Amberlynn's objective is to eat as much junk food as possible. Say it with me.
I'm actually extremely shy. I know I don't come off as shy. I'm really nervous to be meeting a bunch of other people who are going through the same thing.
She was nervous that the people in the Overeaters group would be just like her and support her.
I truly feel like I'm still going to be the only obese one, and it makes me feel very nervous, awkward, and anxious.
She was nervous that people in the Overeaters group would not be like her and not support her.
I do not want to talk in front of all these strangers. I hope they don't make me talk. I don't think I could handle it.
Amberlynn is a private person who just happened to put her entire private life on the internet for everyone to see for a decade.
I cannot find a single OA meeting here.
When she was driven to the location by her girlfriend, she couldn't find the building.
My necklace is literally soaking wet.
People, her necklace was wet. How can you get support with a wet necklace?
My clothes, if you guys literally had to wear my shoes right now, you'd be disgusted.
No one can get support for a condition that is going to end their lives with wet shoes.
It wasn't supposed to rain like this. The newscast did not say it was supposed to rain today, so this was unexpected. It was raining extremely hard. It was beautiful at first, and then it just became ugly.
The newscasters, the clouds, God, all conspired against Amberlynn not to go to this Overeaters Anonymous meeting.
I had to walk to like 50 different buildings.
She had to walk to 50 different buildings, even though she was driven in the car and there were only a handful of buildings at the location.
I literally feel like crap right now. I was really looking forward to this. I was honestly excited to just get some help. I have no idea what just happened. A higher power clearly isn't on my side today.
It ended exactly how you planned it, Amberlynn. It was not supposed to happen, and it did
After
not.
everything's all said and done, I spy a piece of a rainbow.
Sadly, Amber couldn't find this Overeaters Anonymous. So, what did she end up doing instead of attending the meeting?
We got 2 of these cookie dough Arctic Zero ice creams and 2 of the chocolate peanut butter.
Perfect.
Because technically restricting or counting calories can trigger people to binge.
Have a medical degree I don't know about.
That is true, Amberlynn, but it applies to people that have a pie chart that looks like this. Whereas you have eaten 7 to 11 meals a day for the last 20 years and your pie chart looks like this.
I don't think that at all. I don't think carbs will make you gain weight.
Have a medical degree I don't know about.
Thank you, Dr. Now. Dr. Lynn is in fact right again. If you are in a calorie deficit due to restricting your calories, increasing your exercise, or a combination of both, and you eat a sandwich, cup noodle, or any carbohydrate, you will not put on excess weight. However, Amberlynn's food chart looks like this, and she's never in a calorie deficit, so it does not apply to her. As humans aren't plants, we can't store carbohydrate, so any excess carbohydrate we eat will be converted into fat and stored all over the body. Carbohydrate is in fact rocket fuel, and we use it for strength, power, or explosive movement in the body. If you hop, skip, or jump, you will burn carbohydrates. People who do strenuous work or activity will burn carbohydrates. If you walk up stairs or hills or inclines in terrain, you will burn carbohydrates. And even if you speed up your normal walking for about a minute, you will burn carbohydrates. So power, strength, explosive movement, and acceleration is when the human body burns carbohydrates. This doesn't apply to Amberlynn either, because when she exercises, very rarely, she doesn't like to break a sweat, she doesn't like the exercise to be strenuous, and she doesn't like to feel uncomfortable. So when she eats this as meal number 6 of the day, it will be converted into fat and stored around the body.
I lost 89 pounds in about 8 months. It seemed pretty easy to me at the time. I was happy, motivated, determined, and I was doing really, really good.
Getting too overconfident, and that's bad recipe right now.
I am losing weight and I am getting smaller.
Getting too overconfident, and that's bad recipe right now.
My weigh-in today was 485.8. This means I am down 86.6 pounds.
Getting too overconfident, and that's bad recipe right now.
Amberlynn is a graduate of the University of Google. So more often than not, she sees herself superior to anybody from the fitness, health, or medical profession. Doing this allows her to ignore all professional advice that she doesn't want to hear. More importantly, this means she can cherry pick from any mental health disorder, any medical condition she chooses, and Frankenstein them together and apply them to herself in order for her to continue with her food addiction. As I said before, most of the statements that she utters are correct. They are just not relevant to Amberlynn Reid. Point blank. Period. They don't apply to her. They are non-applicable to her. While Amberlynn is a super morbidly obese food addict, she doesn't like to associate with people who are just like herself.
Understand like an outside perspective, like when you think of someone my size, like you think of people from 600-pound life, like you really do.
Ava. Yeah.
Your leg doing? So you got lymphedema in both legs? Let me see the other one. Yeah.
I'm really nervous to be meeting a bunch of other people who are going through the same thing. But when you meet me, you realize it's not like that. I do everything myself. Hello, you guys. So I'm actually having breakfast right now. My girlfriend made it for me. I walk Twinkie. So my girlfriend is gonna take her in. Twinkie usually doesn't get scared like that of the vet, so that was weird.
The truth is, Amberlynn's fitness and mobility is so poor, she cannot drive to the vet by herself. She cannot mobilize herself in and out of the car, take her dog a few meters from the car into the vet's office and have a consultation with the vet.
I didn't have my mask with me. Thankfully, she has hers, but you have to wear a mask when you go in there, which is understandable if you do end up going in there because it is curbside.
Amberlynn had three options. She could have asked the vet for a disposable mask and wore that. She could have borrowed her girlfriend's mask, or she could have gone to any local store and bought a mask.
I do normal, stupid things every single day. I'm out of breath. I'm not like the people on 600-pound life.
Every time I sit in the car, I gain weight from sitting.
You know, I understand why I gained weight because when I'm in the car for long periods of time, my lymphedema does swell. There's a lot of water retention, but I had a lot of sodium yesterday. So the mixture of those things, I totally get it.
And actually with the eating habits, I've been doing really, really well. So I don't know other than the fact that I'm putting on water.
So you say you gained 60 pounds of water on a car ride here because you're sitting up? That's not reality.
On the weekends, I usually gain weight due to how much I'm in the car because that is like the most that I spend in the car. And I do swell a bit in the car. It is what it is. I'm not going to be ashamed of it.
That's not reality.
Not like the people on 600-pound life.
So we've had a long day. I'm wearing the wrong shoes and my feet hurt and so do hers, so.
To see all the selections and options makes it worth how hard it is.
Amberlynn Reid is no different to anybody that appears on My 600-Pound Life, and she knows it. Unlike the people on 600-Pound Life, Amberlynn's weight is just pure bad luck.
A higher power clearly isn't on my side today.
Really expect them to believe that you're only eating a dainty 1,500 calories when you look like this? Yes.
But when I'm like hanging out with friends and stuff and we're like ordering food, like we all order similar things and we all eat similar amounts. So I find it very just like, I don't know. The whole thing is weird because like today especially, like everything I eat today is like practically the same shit that like everyone I was with ate.
How are you maintaining the size, sweetie? I actually don't know. My body hates me.
If a person ate 9 meals a day or 63 meals a week for 20 years, they would be as big as Amberlynn. Those people exist. They appear on My 600-Pound Life. However, she dismisses people that have an identical lifestyle to her and focuses on people that have absolutely nothing in common with her apart from their eating food on one day. She conveniently ignores the fact that these people eat normally most of the time, and before and after binges they're probably restricting calories and increasing their exercise. She doesn't want to know about that because she doesn't want to do those things. All she's looking at is the amount of food that is going into their bodies. Dr. Now prescribes 3 meals a day and no snacking. Let's see what Dr. Amberlynn prescribes herself. Every time she eats, I will classify it as a meal. If she goes over 3 meals in the day, I will roll over to the following day.
The first thing I ate on this day here was a homemade, from my friend, cranberry muffin.
This is not the most nutritious thing that you could have. It's fairly empty calories, but you've chosen this as your breakfast.
So the next thing I am eating is a venti chai tea from Starbucks, which is 350 calories. And then just in here is a birthday cake pop, which is 170 calories.
Again, not a well-balanced meal, but it's calories and it's your lunch. As YP says, enjoy.
Okay, so the next thing I ate was lunch. The top picture is how it looked before I ate it. Bottom picture is how it looked after I ate it.
Just because you say something doesn't make it true. Your body doesn't recognize what you say. It recognizes this as being your third meal of the day. This is your dinner. Amberlynn has now eaten her calorie rations or her meals for day 1. Anything over this is now going into day 2. There's been a lot of carbohydrate in those meals.
Appetizer, it was like these weird mozzarella situation type deals.
You've already eaten 3 very high calorie meals. Your body does not need an appetizer. This is breakfast number 2. Even if you give it another name, Amberlynn, the body will still count it as calories.
It was this place where they had Mexican and Japanese food. So as like a little moment, I wanted to try my first street taco ever.
So far, we've had an appetizer and a moment. No, this is lunch number 2.
I have ate one more thing since I last saw you guys. On the way home, I did get an Oreo McFlurry, but I only ate half, so it was 335 calories.
This is your dinner for day number 2. Now, is it well balanced and nutritious? Absolutely not, but it's high calories and your body will recognize it as another meal. If Amberlynn was sticking to 3 meals a day, she wouldn't have a weight problem. And that's recommended for everybody, not just for people who are super morbidly obese. But she has this great habit of renaming food so she doesn't have to classify it as a meal in her head, but it's classified as a meal in her stomach. I'm eating a cake pop, not a meal. I'm eating sushi, not a meal. I'm having a mukbang, not a meal. I'm taste testing a cup noodle, not a meal. My girlfriend made me a sandwich, so it's not a meal. And this is just the food she's showing us on camera. To be her size, as I've said, she has to have 9 meals a day or 3 days meals in one day.
There's a famous quote, mental things are scary. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, something I've said in the past, that people kind of made a mockery of. I feel like I need to actually share this because I need people to know that, like, mental things is scary. Like, not being able to control, like, depression, being bipolar, and
again, Amberlynn talks about depression and bipolar, and she misses out food addiction, which is her major problem. If she was not Frankensteining every single mental health disorder or medical condition together to cover up for her food addiction, the audience would be more supportive. Because Amberlynn most of the time is trying to miss out her food addiction, she sounds quite often like a small child lying. Her comment section is literally full of people who have the conditions that she is claiming to have, and they're giving her advice, which is irrelevant to her. The food addicts going through exactly the same thing as Amberlynn Reid, who could support her, who could tell her it's okay, who could make her feel less lonely, she just doesn't want to know them. So that type of life choice would be really scary.
What sucks is the fact that I'm also addicted to food. So it's like if I don't get that quick fix, like I feel like in my brain, I kind of go like insane.
Amberlynn's food addiction should be her #1 priority because that is what is going to take her out of this world in the next 10 years. However, because Miss Amberlynn often denies her food addiction or downplays her food addiction, she does not get the necessary help, support, or empathy from her audience, and they are sidetracked by her. The audience talks about anxiety because you talk about anxiety. The audience talks about bipolar because you talk about bipolar. The audience talks about ADHD because you talk about ADHD. The audience talks about binge eating disorder because you talk about binge eating disorder. The audience does not talk about food addiction and how it's going to halve your life because you don't talk about it. Just like her diet goals that Amberlynn orchestrates to fail, her exercise goals or non-goals are also orchestrated at the start to fail. Yet again, it's a little bit more control, power, manipulation of an audience. Amberlynn uses counting steps as a measure of her fitness. It's absolutely ridiculous. Once you are able to walk forward and you have the space to walk forward, that is what you should be doing. You should be measuring your progress by distance.
I forgot to mention, I did take over 4,000 steps, and that was what without even trying. I didn't even try.
You can use number distance like 1/4 of a mile, 1/2 a mile, 3/4 of a mile, or it can be landmark distances such as walking to a tree, a lamppost, a house, a local shop, a supermarket, or a bus station. But it has to be where you are pushing your weight forward, walking. Walking on the spot is much easier than walking forward. When you walk forward, you physically have to take your body forward. You also have to compensate for differences in terrain. So you could be walking on grass, pavement, cement, uphill, downhill. That is more taxing, but it does get you much fitter. Amberlynn has utilised distance goals, the 1 mile challenge, but it was too hard. She decided walking on the spot was easier. Of course, it is easier. She then abandoned walking on the spot, and so her fitness did not progress. When it comes to fitness, the easier something is, the less results your body is going to show you because your body responds to hardship. You can say, I've walked 4,000 steps, I've walked a mile. But when you come to actually walking 1 foot in front of the other, a real mile, you're not going to be able to do that. If you make 200 meters, you are going to be lucky.
I have my mask with me. Thankfully, she has hers, but you have to wear a mask when you go in there, which is understandable if you do end up going in there because it is curbside.
Amberlynn has also utilised landmarks for her distances, and I was so happy when I first saw her walk around the tree. She clearly had more energy in her tank, so I thought she would walk halfway to the tree and back again, but she just walked on the spot, and I thought, nah, she's given up. Walking is too hard, so she's just going to walk on the spot and take the easy option out. Walking on the spot is also not very good psychologically because it's just toil and number accumulation. If you manage to walk to your local shop after 5 years of being housebound, that's an achievement. If you've walked a mile or you've taken part in a race, that's an achievement. Just crunching numbers is nothing, and so you are likely to abandon walking on the spot if you use that as an activity. We've come to the end of the video. This is not an intervention for Amberlynn Reid. She's had enough of those already. This is just me showing you how she's managed to take decades and decades off her life. I'll leave the last words with Amberlynn Reid.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm afraid I'll be dead. Ooh.